Okay. As you started to develop as an artist, how did the hip hop scene in South Africa start to grow? Because as you said in the beginning, it was very underground, a hit here and there. How did things start to progress as you were progressing yourself?
Started to see more young rappers just coming out and just popping shit and just rapping, and not doing it to impress anybody else and prove that they can rap and they know big words and shit like that. Because that's what it was. The underground scene is just all about throwing up big words and being super playful with your punchlines and shit like that. But when I came out, like I came out with another friend of mine called MT. We came up like at the same time, and we were just making good, fun music. Emotional at times and very real and relatable. But we were making just good, playful music. And we just started to see more of that. Like more and more young rappers were just coming up and just making fire music, like bangers. You know?
Okay, so after Bad Hair, your next album was Strings and Bling.
hmm
Why that name?
So strings, because at the time I was really into like the guitar and string instruments, and a lot of the beats that I was getting from my friends and just like online and shit had that element in them. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool thread that I have going on here in like my archive before I even decided to make it an album. And I was like, oh, okay, cool shit. I could add like a new meaning to it. Like I could say strings. One means the string instruments, and then two, it just means the connections that I have with people. Because I was transitioning from one label to another at the time. I changed up my management, started working with my brother as opposed to somebody that I picked up on the way. So I was just looking at how important all the relationships that I made before all this shit fucking mattered, and how they came back to save me. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool shit. I can say strings means that, and then the bling side of it just means me being young and shining and just popping my shit, and also because at the time I had enough money to buy a lot of jewelry, so bling bling, you know what I mean? Strings and bling.
Okay, and then the latest album, Zulu Man with Some Power.
hmm
Now, explain the whole Zulu thing, because I think, like, to Americans, we have the Zulu Nation,
hmm
started by Africa Bambaataa, which is a very prevalent thing in hip hop, especially in the early days. And then, there's the TV series Shaka Zulu,
hmm
which came out, I think, in the '80s. But I don't think people really understand what Zulu means.
Zulu is a clan. It's a tribe. One of the many tribes in South Africa. Um, yeah, that's it. We've had our very prominent roles that we've played in history as Zulu people. As like Shaka Zulu being one of the main representatives of the whole clan. And Zulu people just are known everywhere. Everybody knows Zulu. Everybody knows.
Okay, are you yourself Zulu by bloodline?
Yeah, I'm Zulu. I'm not 100% Zulu because my mother is Xhosa, but I grew up with my father, so I'm Zulu. Like in terms of like my tradition, my culture, and the way I was raised.
Right now, we're in the middle of the whole coronavirus situation. And is South Africa on a lockdown?
hmm We are we at day 24 now, if I'm not mistaken, and we have a couple more days to go, like 10, 11 more days to go. I think.
Okay, because there was an article we put up recently, and they said in the best case scenario, there's going to be 300,000 deaths in Africa from coronavirus. In the worst case, it's going to be 3.3 million.
Shit.
Uh, when you hear numbers like that, what do you think?
It's just scary, bro. I just get paranoid and scared, and just pray for everybody that's being affected. I've been seeing crazy videos like of places like I forget the name of the place, but it's this one country where the morgues are so packed out that people have to leave like their dead relatives in the streets, at the bus benches and shit like that. So I've been seeing stuff like that. And that type of shit makes me feel like this might be like the end of the world type shit. It's scary.
Do you personally know anybody who's tested positive for coronavirus?
No, not personally, no. Uh-uh.
Okay, because South Africa has a really bad situation with HIV.
hmm
Um, they're saying that 7.7 million South Africans are living with HIV, and 19% of adults have HIV in South Africa. Have you heard these numbers?
Yeah, like you hear about them as you do like life orientation in school and shit like that. You hear about them every now and then in the newspaper or whatever. I've heard about it. I didn't know they were that
I
crazy
mean,
though.
20%, 1 in 5 South Africans are HIV positive. Like that is so crazy when you say that out loud. 1 in 5.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
Do you know anyone who's HIV positive?
Yeah, I do. I know one person.
Right. Because I remember I was looking through your Instagram and there was like one post you had and it had like a condom wrapper, and I'm like,
They had a.
yeah,
Oh
bro,
yeah.
you got like a condom
Oh
wrapper and
yeah,
something else,
the
like a
artwork.
Magnum and something else on it, and I'm like,
Oh yeah,
yo,
yeah.
like, why do you think the HIV rate is so high in South Africa as opposed to other places?
I don't know, man. It might be people just being reckless, having unprotected sex. Uh, it might be people just like being ignorant and not wanting to go get tested, and they don't know, so they have kids, and then their kids are born with it. It's just a million cases, bro. It's like it's different ways, you know.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. 1 in 5 adults.
Crazy when you put it like that.
Yeah, it must. I mean, just having sex there is probably kind of nerve wracking. But you've
It's
had the
not
same
like that.
girlfriend since like high school, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My high school sweetheart.
Okay. Um, so you have a new project, I guess, with No ID.
Yeah, that is Zulu Man with some power. He executive produced it. He worked with
Oh,
me.
okay. So, it's that
Yeah.
project. Okay. I mean, No ID is a really legendary figure. I mean, he did Jay-Z's last album. He worked with Kanye. He worked with Logic. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. How did you guys hook up?
He was in SA about 2 years ago, and we met at Universal at the office slash studio. I don't know what he was down here for. Excuse me, but I know as part of his travel agenda was to meet up with me, and we were just like supposed to talk about some music shit and possibly work. And then I guess that went well, and I saw him again in LA like a year later or a couple months later, which was last year February. That's when we really started working on the album and really working on some music as opposed to just chopping it up and talking about it. But he put me onto a lot of shit. Like he gave me a lot of game.
Okay. And how much work did he actually do on that album?
Um, well, he inspired the title, you know. Uh, a lot of the stuff that we were speaking about kind of opened my eyes up a little bit. You know, I started to think, yo, if I'm gonna be this big superstar that transitions from being a local artist to a global artist and being on this global stage, like I might as well represent where I'm from, tell my story, you know, tell people a little bit more about what I come from and what I am and my tradition and stuff like that. Because everybody else on the outside looking in doesn't really know what's going on. They just see a couple videos on the internet and they assume, oh, Africa is this place where they just have wildlife. Oh, okay, cool. They have zebras and elephants running around in their backyards and shit. You know, that's what people think. So when me and him were speaking about it, and he gave me examples like Snoop with the braids and the West Coast shit with the bike and the lowriders and stuff like that, and how that was so appealing to people from New York, like seeing it and hearing it for the first time, how big of an impact that is and how important it is to carry like your culture on your back like that. When me and him had that conversation, I was like, okay, cool. With this next project, I definitely have to do something that's special. And if it's gonna be my transition album, I have to put on and carry my people with me. So I guess that's a lot of work. Like that's in itself, like inspiring the title and the theme of an album is a lot of work. So he did that, and he when I went to LA, he gave me a lot of beats. I was just in the studio and on Gower Street. I was just in there like every day. And he was just throwing me beats. Just beats, 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 beats.
Well, right, because he had a fairly high position at Def Jam. Is that still the case?
I'm not really sure about that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't like that.
Right. So was you linking up with No ID? Was that kind of come with the whole Def Jam deal? Like those things kind of come together?
Yeah, it was one of the first steps towards the deal. because
Got it.
yeah, he was supposed to give me a little bit of guidance and be like my mentor type shit as I try and you know fuck with the market that side in the States. So as we were doing that, we started with the meetings and shit like that and the dinners with Def Jam and started making that connection and then boom.
Well, going through your music, I noticed that you use the N word a lot throughout your songs.
Hmm.
Is that, and that's something that started in the U.S., of
Right.
course, and it has kind of a very weird history. How it started with slavery, and then it's still used and so forth. Some people are cool with it, some people are not. Is the N word used like prominently in South Africa among black kids, or is that more of an American thing?
Well, obviously it's an American thing, but a lot of us use it all over the world. Like young kids, if you're black, you feel like you can't say nigga. You know, we use it like in the hip hop term and how it's being used right now. Like you my nigga, like I fuck with you, or some shit like that. Because we have an equivalent. It just doesn't sound as cool. It wouldn't be cool if I said kafir in the song. It doesn't roll off the tongue. You know what I mean? So we just use nigga.
So, do people use that C word the same way they use the N word in South Africa?
No, over
Like,
here.
is it also a term of, how the N word is a term of endearment used amongst black kids, but
Mhm.
it could also be a term of racism if it's said by white people. Is the C word kind of the equivalent of that?
It's the K word. It's spelled with a K. And no, it's
Oh, the
not like
K.
that.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that one is not like that. That one is not cool to say even till today. It's like I mean, us black people, we can say it, but it's weird if we say it, It's that one hasn't gotten to a point where we're just like, okay, fuck it, we're gonna own this word and use it however we want to use it. We're gonna flip the meaning so that it doesn't hurt us. We haven't gotten to that stage yet.